battery terminal. So what this is doing is stopping the power going along here, down into this cable, and then this cable is sending the power directly down to the starter motor. So now I'm gonna see if I can break open the casing of the pyro fuse to see if there's any way of bridging the gap so the power will get sent to the starter motor. And I've never seen this type of pyro fuse before. So, the pyro fuse, all that does, when it blows, it literally pops off like that, and that's why that's a little bit bent. But by doing that, we've got direct power to the starter motor now. Look at that, it's fixed. So by doing that now, I've bridged the gap in the pyro fuse and I can put it back to the positive on the battery terminal. It's almost like BMW knew people were gonna crash them. Right,
We got power.
Add coolant, it says, so we got no coolant. Does it say add oil? Oh, I got half a tank of fuel. It also says we have 7,000 miles on the clock, not 4,000. But this all adds to the story later on in the video. Now, my dad's gonna add some oil into the engine because we're still unsure of how much it actually has in. And having it a little overfilled is better than having none in at all at this moment. The reason the bonnet is like this is, can you see that, Matt? Then that thing there is a pedestrian protection system. When you hit something on the front, and it hits this pipe here, what will happen is your hinge will blow up from the back, because if you've hit a pedestrian, it will stop them from hitting the head on the engine. That's right, if you do hit something from the front, the hinge pop up at the back, cushioning the blow for potentially a pedestrian. And the only way to fix this now is to replace the hinges and the explosive device which pops them off. There you go.
Well, the more you know, hey?
If it starts rattling, turn it off instantly. Or if we just go no.
I'll just wait for the no.
There's two big moments here. One, whether it starts, which I think it should, and two, whether the gearbox is okay. Fingers are crossed. The last thing we need is something wrong with the engine or the gearbox. That would throw us back massively.
Ready?
Here it goes. Smooth as anything.
Sounds mint.
It ran. That was easy. And it was running good. Any oil coming out? Bit of water dripping. Any lights on the dash? A few lights on the dash.
Bonnet's open.
Oh, it sounds quite. It sounds good.
Oh, that's it. Oh, restraint system.
Oh, that sounds good. See if it'll drive. Go and drive. See if it'll go and drive. Yeah, that's drive. That's drive. Now, will it actually move with its own power?
It's moving.
Is it moving?
Go on. It's moving.
And it did. Just about.
Oh my god. Oh my.
It's the little wins that matter.
It's going.
Even the lights work. Indicate left.
Yeah!
It's alright. Okay, cut it off. But at least now we know the engine seems good and the gearbox. We got that car running pretty fast, and as you all know, I'm far from a mechanic. But the experience I've had from the previous cars that we've rebuilt and learnt from has made jobs like this much quicker and easier. Guess it's the experience that does really matter. Now it's time to see if this thing's actually repairable. A lot of people might think that this whole chassis would have been twisted. Now, the reason why I bought this is because I don't think it is twisted. But if it's hit here, and if anything had moved, you'd see it in the roof. Now, the roof's carbon fibre, and it's not broken. There's no kinks here, but if we come over this way, if it had bananaed the car, you would see some form of dent or movement along here. There's no movement here. All the lines on this side look absolutely perfect. The boot looks like it has gone that way, but we found a reason for that. It's because all the hinge up here has all been hit. The only thing I couldn't see when I bought the car is the subframe underneath. And if the subframe has twisted or moved, we could be in for an issue, which means it may need to go on a jig, depending on how bad it is. But we haven't seen underneath the car yet. So first step, get it in the air, and we'll have a look at the damage underneath. Now, one thing you might be surprised to see is that on the car vertical report, the car actually comes back all clean. No mileage fraud, no records of theft, and no records of damage. And I think there's a reason for this, which we'll find out later. Front looks alright. For now, actually looking underneath the car for the first time, the front doesn't look too bad. Anything that's broken or bent so far looks like it just unbolts and could be replaced. Okay, the big part. Now we're going to check whether the subframe has moved. I can see where it bolts up here, and it looks alright.
It's bent this arm, innit? This one.
Yeah, there it is. I can now see why the back left wheel has moved, because this rear trailing arm is definitely bent. But looking at where the subframe bolts up to the chassis, there's no evidence so far that there's any movement there, which is great. Here's a rear trailing arm on the right hand side of the car and the rear trailing arm on the left. I can 100% confirm that's definitely bent. And now we're bringing out the tram gauge. We're going to be measuring from corner to corner of the subframe to see if we get the same measurement. And if we do, we know that the subframe's sitting in the right place.
Oh, in the middle.
Good news.
Good. So it is literally straight. So that is the best way to find out if something's straight. And that is bang on. We're not out like, you probably get a few mil tolerance, but we're going directly to the center of each side of the bolt. That's good. If it was bent, then it would have moved something, but that is bang on. And that is called a tram gauge, and that's what the professionals use in. We use the professionals. I'm just going to undo this arm here. See
if you can push it back.
And see if it moves the wheel a bit.
The wheel's moving.
I felt a lot of release there.
Yeah, it's moving already.
The wheel's moving, for sure.
Now I'm going to take that rear arm off. Now if the wheel moves back in the correct place, it may just be as simple as one bent arm on the rear.
Rear wheel steer.
Look at that, it's straight.
I can't believe how much it moves.
Look at that. It's not rear wheel steer.
Did you say that you think we should replace it all anyway?
I feel like we should. You don't know what's bent and what isn't bent by just looking at it. Good news, monumental moment. We think this car could be repaired, but we need to now see how much damage is behind that quarter. But how exactly did this car end up like this in the first place? Well, I found this listing before the car was crashed for sale at this place online. And this was the place I actually picked up the crashed car from. You can see the car looks pretty good here, and it's only done 4,500 miles. But it must have drove around 2,500 miles more and then end up in a house. But my first question is, how did someone even manage to drive it in the house? I still cannot get my head around it, and I don't think the police could either. Here's the house. Car entered here.
Yeah.
How has the car entered the house there? The house that it hit is on the corner of the road here. If the car was driving down this way, it's too much of an angle for it to hit the rear quarter on the wall there and then go into the house. So my only thought is that the car was coming down from this angle down here and maybe spun somehow, hit the rear quarter into the wall and then go into the house.
Excuse me, teacher.
Yeah.
Do you know on the previous photograph, have we got any tire marks on this grass?
None at all. There's no tyre marks on the floor, and none of the grass between the road and the house has even been picked up. So how has it ended up in the house? I guess we won't know, and we might not ever know, but one thing is for sure that I do know is that the person who drove it into the house was either not insured or didn't go through insurance. So let me show you why. On the car vertical check, as I mentioned, it shows completely clean, no record of damage. So they never went through the insurance, and that's why it never got registered. And to be honest, I think if it did go through insurance, it might have just been a complete write-off, never to be put back on the road. But I guess again, we'll never know. That is serious. Oh my God, it's eaten the arch lining. Look at that. That's the arch lining. So the whole car is built in sections, and this is all steel. So unlike the M5 where it was aluminium and it was all bonded and riveted, this is just spot welded all together. We've got to strip more of this car apart to see how far the damage has got. which means taking apart everything on the rear end. First thing off, the rear bumper. Bit by bit, we're getting there. Everything in the back left is in a pretty bad way, and we're definitely going to have to replace it. That's if we decide it's repairable. Underneath all this sealer is where all the panels are joined together, so every time we see a bit of seal, it's covering over the spot welds. We've now got to work out how many panels actually need replacing, and with the next step being taking out the arch lining, we found the damage. It's a lot worse than we thought. Force!
We're not reusing that bit then.
Look at this.
Look at the winner.
Even my dad looks shocked at this one. The whole back end, inner arch lining, and it looks like the boot floor has all been damaged. Now I'm stripping apart the inside of the boot, taking off the wiring and all the amplifiers, which leaves us with this. I don't know if this is right, but I'm gonna cut it. We're gonna see. I'm just gonna go. Oh my god.
How's it worse?
What does that even mean? Look at it.
Oh my.
It is bad, isn't it?
That's well bad.
Now what? We've still got to continue stripping it because the damage just keeps on going. And I don't want to buy anything for this car if it's just completely scrap. So the next thing to take off is the parcel shelf. We want to see if that's got any damage from the rear quarter being hit in so far. First off, we can get the fabric off it. Then there's a bunch of sound deadening, which we can work at getting off now. Along that are the seat belts and a couple of trim clips. And as we thought, the parcel shelf is also kinked. So that's either going to have to be pulled straight or just straight up replaced. Next up is removing the back seat and the rear bench to see if there's somehow any damage there, because if there is, I definitely think that this car is long gone. But it's looking all good. So now we're moving back onto the boot. We can see that the boot lid is moved over because on the parcel shelf where it holds the hinge, it is completely bent. You can see my dad struggling to get the ratchet on the nut here. I've then got to remove the spring from the boot lid on both sides. Springs out. And then also the hydraulic strut which holds the boot up. After that, me and my dad can remove it. How the hell is that going to go back in? So this is what we're initially left with. There is a lot of damage here, but the good news, looking at the positives, is that the rail on the back looks completely untouched. Obviously, I'm going to have to measure up everything to make sure it is straight, but I'm pretty confident to say that this is completely straight along with that one, and most of the damage is caused all on the inside here. The inner wheel arch is gone, and even the parcel shelf on here is all kinked and moved. You can see this bit is just lifted up, which is why the boot has moved over. I think this is repairable, but it is nothing I've ever repaired before. So with the car as is, with the damage at the back, all the airbags deployed, the damage at the front, damage to both headlights, and bearing in mind it's only done 7,000 miles and it's not registered as crashed, I got this car for £32,000. I don't think it's cheap, but I don't think it's too expensive if all of this can be repaired. Bearing in mind that if we repair this car, it'll be completely clean title. So you're looking at over £62,000 for the spec that it is. But as I mentioned, before I spend any money on this car, I think I want a professional to look over it to make sure it is actually safe to repair.
What's up, buddy?
Yo! We are calling you because of your expertise and knowledge.
Liar.
Is this repairable?
By repairable, do you mean like after you cut it out you can repair it, or like fix that?
Yeah, I mean, after we cut it out, is it repairable?
Yeah, anything's repairable.
Which is exactly what I wanted to hear. Now, we can begin work. So all of this can come off with all of these separate little spot welds here. Can you see? Look, spot weld, spot weld, spot weld, spot weld. But I'm not going to start that just yet. We're going to start here at the front and then work our way back because there's still quite a lot of damage that needs to be done. Let's do it. We'll worry about that rear quarter later in the video. For now, let's get this bonnet off. And anytime you have damage to a bonnet on a car, it's always good to replace the hinges as well. Especially on this BMW because it has that passenger protection system. This little device here you can see me pushing down, which pushes the back of the hinge upwards to protect a pedestrian if you were ever to hit them. But to access the hinges, we've got to take off this scuttle panel along with the wiper blades, and now we can get to the system which is bolted to the hinge. Because these are deployed, we're going to have to replace not only the protection system, but also the hinges as well. These hinges, they can actually be reset after they blow off with the pedestrian protection system. And someone said, why don't I do that to just save the money? Well, the thing is, even if I do like slide that down and then hook this back over that little knob there, this hinge, you can see, it is well bent. Like, it's proper, that's meant to be rolled back there. So if we're lining up the bonnet, it's just not worth the hassle. Just get new hinges and stop being a cheapskate. Last time, we tried to work out how exactly this BMW ended up in a house. And this time, we actually have new footage. This is CCTV from one of the houses down the road. And if you look in the top right-hand corner, you can see the BMW fly past and into the house. And what's even better than that, I actually had emailed a recreation of the crash, including the speed they were going as well. They were going pretty fast into this house. Ah, so that's what happened. Now we've just got to rebuild it. So there's still more damage to the front end of the car. Both front wings are damaged, the front bumper, the headlights, and who knows what else when we start to tear this apart. There's even little things that you forget about, like the parking sensors and the wiring, which has all been broken. But at this stage, it's just a case of stripping everything apart and trying to find everything that is damaged so we know we can replace it. The front left headlight is definitely no good to us anymore. And there's parts of the insulation of the house inside the light. And on the driver's side headlight, that's all broken up as well. So that's also going to have to be replaced. And now we can get on with removing the front wing, or fender if you're American. Some of the bolts for the wings are in tricky places, but generally most BMWs are all the same. And as we've worked on a few now, it's quite easy to locate where the bolts are. And once we've got that wing off, we can see exactly what's damaged. Again, everything here is looking great, but we didn't expect there to be any damage here. This is maybe bent, but I think it'll go again. That'll go again, won't it? Next step, there's a bit of brick. Front rad pack. This should come off in one whole piece, I think. We should be able to get it off.
Just jiggle back it.
What's that mean?
And it's like...
Okay. First off, it's the strut braces. Yeah! Then we've got to remove the clips which hold the intake pipe to the rad pack. Ethan demonstrating quite well here.
Oh! Hey!
After that, there's 4 big bolts which remove it from the frame. Next step, hoses. We're disconnecting everything that's connected from the rad pack to the engine and chassis of the car. There's 2 hoses on this side for this small radiator, a bottom hose for the main radiator, and the same on the other side. And to access it further, we've got to remove this under tray, which also works as a strut brace as well. Now we can remove the 2 bolts at the bottom, which are connecting the rad pack to the front subframe, and the 4 big bolts, which are also connecting the rad pack to the chassis legs of the car. After that, we should have the all clear. We've just got to move it away and make sure we did actually disconnect everything. Oh, there's one. Hey. Yes. Then, screensaver popped in to remove the windscreen, which is going to be helpful for a job we're going to be doing later on in the video. Cheers, lads. This is the rad pack, and it holds every single radiator for the car on the front of it. Sometimes it is easier to go through every single individual part and order that separately, and it can be cheaper. But in this case, and especially this case, I've got a better deal on ordering the full bit complete. Because I've got this one. This front rad pack, which is pretty much perfect, it's got every single part on it, was from Cinetic, which is a breaker's yard, and they were breaking a BMW M3 with rear end damage. So I've got lucky here, and I've got a lot of parts in a package deal for my M3. All I've got to do now is just put this rad pack on, which should be as easy as taking it off. We'll see. It is a huge saviour being able to buy something like this, because generally I thought I'd struggle getting something like this when I first picked up the car because the car's so new.
Bet that one ain't been 7,000 miles.
But it's definitely worth doing that extra bit of research and asking breakers yards if they have any of the car that you're rebuilding in, even if it isn't listed online. Now I've got the rad pack roughly in place, I'm connecting all the electrical connections up, like the front fans, then all the cooling hoses, making sure I connect up the bonnet release cable to the new rad pack, which includes the bonnet locks on it, and then connecting up the hoses for the auxiliary radiators on the left and right hand side of the car. After that's done, we can begin to put all the bolts in which connect the rad pack to the chassis of it and the front subframe. Not forgetting even more electrical connectors. Then I can push the intake pipe back in place and put those clips back in that Ethan removed. And it's looking pretty good. It is starting to look brand new already, or brand new second hand, links in the description. Now, everything is connected on the front bar two things. So here's the oil cooler that always gets battered and bruised, and here are the oil lines which go to it, and they were kinked. I had to cut them off in the last video so I could bypass the oil cooler. Well, this line actually goes here, and this line here actually goes to there. I need two new oil lines which haven't arrived yet from BMW, so we're waiting for them, and that is the last thing we need to connect to get this up and running, and then we can change the oil and make sure it is all good. But there's more things to fit. This foam piece goes at the very front of the crash bar here and actually serves a purpose. It holds this little tube which goes down along here into those little sensors which I told you guys about, which if this gets hit and that hose pinches, then it blows that pedestrian protection system up on the front, and literally all that holds this on is you just do this. And that is it. Don't kick it. Big moment now. The headlights. Our worst enemy. Chances of these working is very slim. Now, normally what I do with headlights, and I advise anyone to do it, is just check the part number on your own headlight and get the exact same one. There's no point taking the risk, but guess what? I took the risk. 644802. Completely different. Starts with a 9.
I'm hoping this works.
I'm gonna just plug this one in. We've never had good experience plugging in second-hand headlights, but let's see what happens with these second-hand headlights. They were £900 for the pair.
Okay, it's not great.
I think it's not the most expensive set of headlights I've had, but they aren't cheap.
No.
See if it works.
Big moment.
Oh! We're on. No lights.
No lights. No, nothing.
Nothing at all.
No.
Fantastic.
£900 in the bin.
No lights.
Nothing.
I just wanted to remove the second-hand headlights and put the originals back in just to see if they were working.
That's a good test. I like that. That's clever. Aha. That's also painful.
And they worked. What's the difference? Unless they're doing your sleep coding. I could change these, but I don't think these are going to make a difference. I don't think they are.
It's worth it for a £900 to try, isn't it?
Yeah. So I was down to the last resort of changing all the little ballasts on the back of the headlight. I'm not actually sure this will make a huge difference, but it's just worth a try. It's never worked previously, but that's not to say it won't work now. Swapped over all these modules, but I'm feeling very doubtful because I think all these do is just power up the LEDs. I'm very, very, very doubtful. But let's manifest.
It actually works.
No way did that work.
That's never worked before.
That's
on any
never,
of the cars.
no, that's never worked before. This one! Yeah! Yes! I can't believe that's worked. No way, that's never worked before.
Okay, let's just. Do
I
the other one.
manifested it.
Let's just do the other one before we get too excited.
I manifested it.
You did manifest it.
I manifested it. There you go, guys. Manifest it, and it works. All I've got to do now is manifest the rear end being fixed. I can't believe that actually worked. Maybe one of you guys could tell me why that worked? Yes! I still can't get my head around it. Now we're gonna modify them. Oh! Yes! Look at that!
Could have gone straight in his hand then.
I'm going to be removing this little board here with the LED on, which sits inside the module. Once I've removed it, I'm then going to apply some of this paste to stick a new board on, which I got from Auto ID. And we're going to wait for that to dry. After that, I'm going to move to the back of the headlight and remove the module out of this one. And once I've got that out, pry the board off the module. Being very careful with it, and then apply the new board which I got from Auto ID as well. I think this is going to be a pretty cool modification, but we've got to wait for it to dry. Whilst we wait for the glue to dry on those modules, I do have some more stuff. In with my deal, I also managed to get a bonnet, a wing or fender if you're American, and another wing or fender if you're American. Now these are wrapped, this is wrapped in grey, but somehow I've been so fluky and it is the same orangey red as what the car is. I've just got to unwrap it. I've already unwrapped that wing. I'm going to unwrap this and then I can start fitting the two wings. We could actually get the full front end built. This is going to be like record timing. When buying parts off a scrap car, you can usually get a pretty good deal if you're going to buy a lot of them. So as well as buying the rad pack and the headlights, I managed to get a really good deal with the front wings and bonnet as well. And lucky enough for me, they were the same colour as the car. The only thing is, I've got to remove the wrap that was on them first. But again, luckily, underneath the wrap, the paint was all good. So we might get away with not having to paint this. With the wrap off, I can start to fit the right-hand side wing. Unfortunately, I didn't get a front bumper with the deal, but you'll see why in a minute. Once I put this wing on, I can put the washer bottle in place, which sits inside the wing and secures up with just one bolt. After that, the board on the modules had dried, so I can plug them back in and slot them into the top of the headlight, tighten them down, then get the ones which fit on the back, plug them in and tighten them up. And we're about to see whether this modification is actually pulled off. Here we go. Big moment. Oh, look at, just put side lights, just put side lights. Is it working? Yeah.
Oh, that one.
Look at that, look. Yellow. I know some people are going to be like, why would you do that? But that looks mental. Yellow DRLs. Oh, and that's cool. Wait. Full effect, full effects, full effects. Oh, look at that.
That at night time is going to look sick.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah?
Good news.
You don't love it?
Is it legal?
Is it legal?
Is it illegal? Are you the police? That is looking so cool. Again, I think it's those extra little touches which is really going to pull this car together when we finally get it back on the road. Now, we're on to wiring. Some of the parking sensor wires have been pulled out of the connectors on the front. So instead of buying a whole new loom, which is pretty expensive, I imagine, I'm just going to splice the wires on the front slide on my little solder stick, then slide on a connector which I had left over in the unit, and when I use my heat gun over this little solder sleeve, it will heat it up and melt the solder in it, making a nice connection. Now, some people don't like the look of the standard front bumper on these, and I kind of have to agree with you. The front nostrils are pretty hard to get used to. But when I went to Auto ID, they said there was a solution for that, and I think they're right. This is the Adro bumper, and Auto ID are the UK distributors of Adro. And I think this bumper is going to dramatically change the front of this car for the good. And I don't think we'll get the full effect until it's painted. For now, we've got to see whether it fits right. So I'm fitting all the parking sensor wiring loom, which I've just repaired to the back of the Adro bumper, and then I can slot it into place. Again, a huge thank you to Auto ID for this. When they reached out to me to help with the modifications of this build, of course I'm not going to say no. I'll be mad to. For now, the Adro bumper is on. It's a 10 out of 10 from me. Look at this. That looks savage. That looks unreal. I think that is a definite improvement. Again, there's probably going to be people that are like, oh no, I prefer the original. But how can you not like that? I know it's not orange or red or whatever the colour of the car is at the minute. Oh, that looks wicked. That looks absolutely wicked. Introducing more modifications. I wouldn't be me without upgrading the car as well as rebuilding it. So to get rid of those ugly strut braces, we've got some carbon strut braces from Keys or Kiz. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. These are just going to simply replace the old ugly strut braces and look a lot better in doing so. I always like to throw in the odd upgrade when rebuilding these cars just to give them that extra bit of edge to a regular BMW M3. And I'm sure there's going to be plenty more upgrades throughout this whole rebuild. It's a very upgradable car. Another sensational modification, in my opinion. But you guys can let me know in the comment section below. Now, time for the bonnet. And with the bonnet, of course, I got the new bonnet hinges. Normally to line up a bonnet and get the panel lines all good, it's pretty tricky. But for now, I'm just going to use the witness marks of where it was originally bolted up to get it roughly in place. Once the hinges are in place, it's time for the new passenger protection system, which bolts to the hinges, and then the electrical connector can clip into them on both sides. And then I've got to get to work with removing all of the old wrap. And that is pretty much job done for the front end. Right, lads from the body shop have come down who paint my cars, and they've said that basically what I shouldn't have done is cut all of this out, which is probably right, because the idea is to pull this out with all the panels connected to try and get this line quite nice before I start taking off the quarter panels and everything else. Look at the contraption that they've set up. So it's going to go onto a strong part of the chassis rail over there. The pump goes along here and then onto a strong part of the quarter. And then I'm going to pump it up and try and push this out as far as I can to get this gap nice. Whoa.
It's even moving up here.
The idea is to get the panels as straight as possible before we start cutting off the rear quarter. That way we can get a pretty good idea of what part of the car is savable and what part of the car that we actually need to cut off. Also, we're going to get a nice mating surface for all of the new panels which go on. And you can see just how far the car's actually moving when the guys are pushing it around in the back now. And then we'll get a pretty good idea. Look at this. What a difference pulling it makes. I really wish I didn't cut it, but we know now for next time, because that's just, well, it's just really helped pulling the whole panel out. We've got almost a nice gap here. It's a little bit bigger here, but that's because of all of this damage. But now we've actually got room in the back, and we can see which parts are scrap, which have been written on, and then which parts we're going to save. So like this inner arch lining we can save. And now I think we can save this parcel shelf. It's all been pulled out, and by doing that, it means that we don't have to do loads of welding over on this side, which is what we didn't want to do. So Now we kind of have made progress here, but that's not the job we want to carry on with at the minute. All of the airbags inside the car need changing. Every single one is deployed, but to do so, I need to be able to open the doors. So I've got to put the wheels on, but that brings me to the rear, and that's why I've got this arm here. Remember in the first video, we found that only one arm was bent on the back. So all I'm going to do is put this arm on, see if the wheel sits straight, put the wheel on, and I should be able to just drive it forward enough so I can open the doors and fit the dashboard. So this is actually going to be quite interesting. First, I still need to remove more damaged trims and heat shields which are at the back. Now we can get full access to that bent arm. I've already unbolted it from the rear subframe. I've just got to unbolt it from the actual wheel hub. And these funny looking washers here are there so we can adjust the toe of the wheel in and out. But we'll worry about them when we come to get the wheel alignment. Now we've just got to fit the new rear trailing arm and get the washers roughly right.
That controls the handbrake, and it is broken. Slapped off. So just got to put a new one of them on.
Also, the electronic handbrake is broken. It's only plastic and it's snapped off from the actual caliper. I've just got to unbolt the broken parts off the caliper and then bolt on the new electronic handbrake. All this is a motor which twists the piston on the caliper outwards so it clamps the brake pads onto the rear disc, effectively doing a handbrake's job but electronically. Now I can put the wheel on and I can see if everything is all lining up okay. And from here, it looks all right. Okay, moment of truth. We want to pull this forward. Actually, let's check the tracking. That looks sound. This one, sound. I think we're good.
Look how crazy this thing looks.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a little bit pointed in, isn't it?
Yeah, that's definitely...
But yeah, I did do that. I can tow it out. I've just, that arm I put on has got adjustment, which I did show. But now we can get doors open, and it's time to do all of these airbags. Obviously, we've got to replace the full dashboard because the passenger airbag has split the dash over here, and you can't repair this. There's a weak point in the dash, and when that blows up, it's no longer repairable. So we've got to replace the full dashboard. Luckily, I got one, second hand, £450.
That's not too bad.
I don't think, it didn't include airbags. I had to buy the airbags. The airbags look, it did include airbags.
And you've bought them separately as well?
Oh my God. Well, that's a bonus. I could send an airbag back because the airbags were about like 700 quid for the second hand one there.
So we saved £900 with the headlights.
We're on a roll. We're on a roll. This is out of the 3 series, so I could regular 3 series, but I think it's the same. But we'll find out. First step is to remove the seats. I always tend to do this when doing airbags. It just gives you a bit more room to move around the car, especially when all of the airbags are deployed. That's one driver's seat out and the passenger seat. Loads of room now to crack on with the work. I'm going to start off with the curtain airbags, the ones I hate the most. Off comes the A-pillar trim, and the curtain airbags are just clipped into the actual frame of the car. But the clips are so powerful and they're really hard to get out. But once you've got them out, this is what the device looks like. Onto the new curtain airbag, which I bought from BMW. Fresh with new clips, ready to go in. All I've got to do with this is plug in the electrical connector for it. There's 2 bolts which hold the actual explosive device to the frame of the car, and then the rest is all on clips. And it's exactly the same for the right hand side of the car as well. And once that's done, we can push back the headliner and move on to the next thing. Ready? Okay. Curtain airbags are in. That is a horrible job, but it's done. Next step, we've got to take these seat belts out because they are fully locked up. Oh, that one isn't. Oh, do you know why that might be?
Why?
What do you think?
Because the passenger wasn't driving.
Normally, so these seat belts lock out, so when the airbag deploys, you stay in the same spot. Otherwise, if it didn't lock out, then what would happen is you go forward, the airbag would deploy, and then you just KO yourself on the steering wheel. So these lock out to keep you in the same spot. Did you know that?
I did know that.
Thing is, we can get these sent off to a company and then reset and have new airbag device things put on them, which is what I plan to do because it saves a lot of money. So I'm going to take these bolts out and we'll send them off. Then we can get onto the dashboard.
Are you going to send the other one off?
Yeah, just in case, because I feel like it should have been locked out. The only reason I can think of that the other seatbelt hasn't locked up is that either the passenger wasn't wearing a seatbelt or there just wasn't a passenger. I guess we might never find out. But now I've got the trim removed, I can access the bolts which hold the seatbelt in place, remove them and send them off. And we do exactly the same thing for the passenger side. Even though it does seem okay, I just want to be sure. Seatbelts are out. Next step, the big one. Center console's got to come out because the dashboard has got to come out. I thought I might be able to get away with just taking the dash out and leaving the center console in, but when we look at the old dashboard, there is a bolt holding it in there, and there was something there, but whoever took that out broke that. So yeah, center console's got to come out. Here we go, onto the big one, the dashboard. There's no avoiding it, we've got to do it. First off is the trim at the back of the center console. Once I've got this off, I can access the two 10mm bolts, which bolt the center console to the frame of the car. Then I'm going to go in the cup holder, remove the trim, then I can see the other two 10mm which hold the center console to the frame of the car. Again, I've never worked on one of these BMW M3s ever before, so most of this is just guessing and using common sense on where I think the bolts are which are going to hold in this dashboard. We still haven't managed to remove the center console away from the dash because we think there's a few hidden bolts behind it, but my dad's trying to work that out whilst I start taking apart this dashboard. Out with the screen in the middle, and then the instrument cluster. Got to take out all the fans because behind the fans there's usually hidden bolts. I can lift up the trim behind the steering wheel for more bolts to remove the instrument cluster, and behind the instrument cluster, even more bolts. But the cool thing about this BMW is that they've actually used all of the same bolts to hold the dashboard in, which makes it a lot easier to organise them all and work out where they went. I've removed the knee airbag from underneath the steering wheel. There's one bolt at the top of the dash here, which would have been really difficult to get to if we had that windscreen in. So again, a massive thanks to Screensaver for taking the screen out for us, which has made this job a lot easier. Now moving over onto the left side, which my dad's doing. Two bolts on the side, one bolt at the top of the dashboard, a few underneath, and then a lot more inside the glove box. It's never ending. The dash still didn't move, so we pried this trim off on the top of the dashboard, which revealed a set of speakers, and you guessed it, a whole lot more bolts. Oh no. My dad dropped one of them, but we managed to find it. Next up is the steering wheel airbag, pops out from the steering wheel, and then I can loosen the one big bolt which holds the steering wheel to the steering wheel column. We're going to tape the clock spring into place to stop it from spinning and breaking. Then I'm going to start to strip apart the steering column, just so we're able to pull the dashboard over the top of it. Then I think we finally figured out where the last two bolts were. I think we're on the last two bolts, which are like through this tiny little hole at the back. For some reason BMW put them there. The rest really easy, and of course the last two ones are going to be a faff. Not much room here. Hey, the dash is out. There's a lot of stuff in here, bearing in mind we've just taken the full dashboard out. There's still a lot of stuff. Heads-up display, steering column, this whole metal frame. So this is how many screws we're holding on the actual dashboard. If we've got any left over at the end, we haven't done very well. And we do a little score out of 10. Now we're gonna -2 off this because the new dashboard has got 2 broken bits off. So if we've got 2 left at the end, that still counts as a 10 out of 10 score, as I see it. Any more than 2, then we've got a problem. Here's the old dashboard, and these are the little bits here which were really hard to get to, and the other guy who took this out on eBay obviously found it really hard as well, that hard that he just snapped them. Oh, we snapped that bit off as well. So we're gonna have 1, 2, 3 screws left over because he snapped them. Nice one, mate. In we go with the new dashboard and the new passenger side airbag. We're trying to do this as quick as possible now, so we remember where all those bolts were that we've just removed. And we're doing pretty well. It is a lot easier when two of you are on the job. My dad's remembered where the bolts were on the left-hand side, and I've remembered where everything goes on the right-hand side of the car. It's teamwork. Back in with all the air vents, the steering column trims, and the instrument cluster, which I had to remove a few times because there was other things I had to bolt in first. Here is the airbag. Oh yeah, and good as new. Here's the knee airbag. The knee airbag just goes underneath, well, where your knees go, and there's two 10mm bolts which hold it in place. As they would say in France, j'ai fini. That means I'm finished. Look at that. And we had 3 bolts left over as predicted. I forgot to film that part, but you're gonna have to take my word for it. It works. Look at all this. The dashboard is lit up. That's lit up. All of this is lit up. That's lit up. It's great, and everything all works. I kind of wish I had the bucket seats in this, but I think the bucket seats are really expensive, but we have smashed this out in a matter of a couple of hours. All the airbags are now in, even the curtain airbags. The only one thing we're missing are the seat belts, which we're gonna have to wait to get back, but there's still more. The oil cooler lines have arrived from BMW. Now, we should be able to get these fitted and kind of finish off the whole front end in one whole go. If only this job was as easy as it sounded. First off, I'm going to drain the oil that's inside the engine, which is easy enough done. And then these 2 oil cooler lines are in a place I can't even describe on the side of the engine. They were so difficult to get to. But eventually, I got one out, and after fighting a bit more, I managed to pull the second one out. But putting them back in is going to be a struggle. That was a lot harder than I thought. I've had to take down the steering rack, the anti-roll bar, just to get the oil lines in, which you'll never see. They go some weird route all the way up there, and then come down into this oil cooler here. So now, I've got to get these ones on and slot them in. This is going to be even harder now because these are longer, because I've not cut these ones. So I've got to get these ones up into the hole, bolt it all in. Don't let this edit deceive you. This took a lot longer than I originally thought, and a lot longer than this edit makes out. I pushed them up to the side of the engine and then bolted them one to one side of the oil cooler and one to the other side of the oil cooler. Then it was on with the under tray. All the under tray and everything is on. But remember, BMW decided to leave the oil cooler kind of exposed. There is an under tray here, but it's still exposed. And this gets a battering, and we don't want it to get a battering again. And this is a modification now, which is actually, what do you call it?
Improving.
Yeah, it's improving and practical. It's a practical modification, because look at this. From Auto ID, it's an actual tray, which probably should have come with the BMW from factory, but Auto ID realised that and started selling them. And now, this tray not only still provides the aerodynamic cooling system that we need, it also provides the protection as well. Wow, look at it. Look at it thrive underneath here. What a modification this was. Again, thanks Auto ID. Now, I think that's all left to do to get this thing started and moved out is to fill it with oil and fill it with coolant. You think you'd just pour both in, but this is a 2022 car, so it's not easy as that. You wait till you see what you have to do to pour coolant in this car. Start off with step 1, which would be remove the coolant cap from the engine cooling side, then the cap from the charge cooling side. After that, we're going to put in the vacuum filler into the engine cooling side of the coolant, add on the little T-piece, and connect the airline to it. This is going to suck the air out of the cooling system. Once it's pulled a good enough vacuum, we can leave it to make sure that there's no leaks in the cooling system. And this looks good. Step 5. Get your Valvoline coolant. Of course, we're using Valvoline. Team Valvoline all the way. We're part of Team Valvoline. Look, it's actually made for BMW Mini and Rolls-Royce.
Oh.
It's quite interesting, isn't it? Now, instead of using it out of the Valvoline bottle, we're pouring it into a bucket. You'll find out why in a minute. But we are now part of the Valvoline team. What a great brand to be a part of. Step 5.5, make sure we have no air bubbles in it. This is a trick my dad showed me. Wait, how did you do it? We've got to try and get this hose with no air in it, but only coolant. That way, when it gets sucked into the cooling system, we don't pull any air in it. Go. Oh, big air bubble.
Oh no.
Oh no.
We didn't do that very well.
No. We may have pulled a few air bubbles in, but overall, we're sucking most of the coolant from the bucket into the cooling system now. And once that's done, we top up the rest just to the maximum fill point. And then on the charge cooler side, I think you can just pour it in. Before we move any further, oil time. Valvoline oil. You ready for step 7?
Yep.
This has got to be pressed 3 times now.
Right.
I'm not joking either. 1, 2, 3. Set the heating to the maximum temperature. And the fan to the lowest.
Strange.
Yeah, okay. Press the accelerator pedal and maintain for 15 seconds.
What?
Do not press the brake pedal during this process. Can you hear it? Can you hear it?
Yeah, what's that?
The water pump's going round. Step off the accelerator, press the brake pedal, start engine. The engine speed and actuators in the cooling system are automatically controlled. So do I start it? Yay! Service function has started. Yeah, like what it says in the manual.
A bit revving.
What happened to just pouring in coolant and oil? Why? What? Switch off engine. I think now what it's basically saying is just check the levels. Price. Now, so far up to this, the front end, all of the brand new second-hand parts cost me £4,800, which I think is actually not too bad. The dashboard, £450. Airbags, £500. Total so far, £37,750. We're expecting the car to be worth around £60,000 afterwards, and we are on target to reach goals. Now, I was actually going to drive it out properly for the first time. It's already looking great, apart from the back. Well, we've got a lot done. Now, we need to tackle this rear quarter. Today's challenge is going to be this rear quarter. And this is something that I've never done before, because not only is it the rear quarter, it's also all the inner structure of the car here, which is usually would take a specialist repair, but today not. Insurance companies have a lot to consider before deciding the car's repairable. How much is the car worth? Is it safe to repair? How much are the parts? What will the labour costs be? And sometimes even the cost of providing a hire car comes into it. Luckily for me, I only have to consider some of those points, and I've already carried out a lot of work whilst keeping it under budget. £37,750. But now it's left me with the biggest part of the repair. We have Jack from Florida. Sorry, Freddie, we've stole Jack from you now.
They nicked me.
In the last video, before starting any repairs to this car, I called Jack to get his professional opinion. Is this repairable?
Yeah, anything's repairable.
And to be 100% sure we were doing it right, Jack, come over.
So basically what you're gonna do is I'm gonna give you something to cut this whole thing out. We're just gonna start hacking out stuff. It's gonna look scary, but it's gonna be 100% better once we cut it all out.
100% better. And that's exactly what we did. I started hacking away at all the damaged parts on the rear, because once we get the outer layer off, we should be able to see the damage inside. My compressor has not got the power to do it. We don't want to grind it, because if we start grinding, it's going to flick sparks all over like the carbon roof. We need to use the compressor, so I think we're gonna head to Mallory Performance and use their compressor. And with a bigger compressor, the job was a lot easier. And I got to work at cutting away the rear quarter. Now we can see the full inner structure of the car, and you can see it's built up of loads of different parts. Now we're gonna work out what we need to replace and what's safe to keep. There was actually a lot more parts which were damaged, including a lot of the inner structure. So I'm cutting away all of the damaged parts now, but being careful not to damage anything which is worth keeping. Which left us with not much really.
Let's see the fitment. Oh, bang on.
Now we took all the tension off this. This is all nice and wasn't like that before. But halfway there.
Look at how different it looks. Mint, not so mint.
Look, whoa, crazy. Whoa, that looks mad. Now we've got a lot of the damaged parts off, it's time to begin work. And first thing I'm gonna do is remove the rear door. This is gonna give us a lot more access for where we're working, and it's a pretty easy thing to remove. Now we can see even more of the damage. Next up, we've got to get the car in the air, on axle stands, and then I can get underneath it and start removing the side skirt. The rear quarter runs all the way down pretty much to the front of the car, and the side skirt covers a lot of this. So we need to remove it to assess any damages underneath that. And whilst I was doing that, my dad was inside the car starting to remove the roof lining. Because we're going to be doing a lot of welding on this car, we don't want to set fire to anything. And the roof lining will probably be the first thing that sets fire. And with all the interior lights unclipped, we can finally pull the roof lining out of place through the front of the car because we haven't got the windscreen in. Look at all the carbon.
Oh yeah.
That looks wicked. Now, we still need to get off all this damaged part. And we're going to say from this line forward is very good. And from backwards is very bad. So what we've got to do, but the thing is on the inside, some of the parts are very good. So what we want to try and do is these little spot welds here, we don't want to drill them all the way through because then we've got nothing to weld on. So we've got to try and almost sand off the spot weld so we can break off this part of the body without damaging the underpart. Is that right, Jack?
That's correct.
How can he hear me with these headphones on?
I got X-ray hearing.
I need some eyeglasses. That's what they call them in America. Eyeglasses on, and I'm now using the belt sander to just weaken those spot welds. What I'm trying to do is just take off the top of the spot weld and not damage the panel underneath it. And there is a lot of these spot welds which hold the outside panel to the inside structure. So I'm going to be here a long time. My dad's now removing all of the wiring around the wheel arch because we're going to be doing a lot of cutting and welding around there, and all the wiring on the inside of the rear quarter as well. And I'm still at it with sanding down these spot welds. Once I think I've sanded down enough, I'll use this spot weld chisel to wedge in between the outer panel and the inner panel to break away these spot welds. And by doing this, I should be able to separate the outside skin to the inside skin. Not forgetting all the spot welds which are on top as well. This job is pretty relentless. Just about ready to come off. So we're going to cut a line here. And then the reason we're going to cut here and not somewhere up here because this still looks okay is because this is a nice area to join on because it's like flat and you can hide it quite nice. I'm going to let Jack do that in case I snag the inside and then that'll be a big problem. So now Jack's cutting the outer quarter panel off. Being careful not to cut through and damage the inner panel because this part of it looks okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Woo. Look at that. Now, there's barely any, oh, there is more stuff we've got to take off. Have we got to take all that off? Oh. Oh. Okay, so now, inner structure. It doesn't stop there, does it? The whole thing's
The
gotta
whole
go.
thing gotta go.
And it's
because that's all one piece.
And this is
all this.
Oh wow. That is a lot of drilling. Yeah.
This is not an easy job.
Oh dear. That's Kevin's blanket.
Kevin, they've used your blanket, mate.
Sorry, Kevin, but now we've got to be really careful because now I'm sanding down the spot welds of more damaged parts, but now when I'm separating these damaged parts, I want to make sure I don't damage the part that they're connected to because we want to keep that. And some spot welds I've got to drill out. Again, all of this takes so much patience and we've got to be so careful here. But between me and Jack, we're getting through it. And it's quite interesting to see how this car's built in all these tiny little sections. And all of these sections together give it the strength that it needs. But now it needs to go up in the ramp and we need to remove the wheel because there's even more parts that we need to replace underneath the arch. We're having to cut off way more than we originally thought just because there was damage to this arch, like the inner arch here, but this inner arch is all one big, like huge panel all the way to the inside. So we're actually gonna have to take off this damper here and we're going to be replacing this part as well, which means we've got to get to all the welds underneath this seam here, which this is a way bigger job than we thought, but still possible. I think more grinding. Let's do it. This is definitely part of the reason why the insurance companies won't touch this type of damage. They'll quote for the repair they think it needs, and as you dive into it deeper, you'll find it needs even more, which requires even more labour work. Luckily for us, we're not an insurance company. Out comes the wire wheel. This is going to grind away all of the seam sealer which is covering over the spot welds that we need to drill out. This is, I'll be honest, it's not the most fun thing in the world. What a messy job this was. But it needs to be done. The seam sealer is covering over all of those spot welds which I mentioned. And without doing it, we won't be able to drill them off nicely. You can see here the panels that we're trying to get off in one piece without damaging the underneath. And out comes the drill to drill out even more spot welds. I even had Liam come in and help me with it. This thing was a huge job with hours of labour. But eventually, we got off all the damaged parts. Well, nearly all.
All I have left to do is take out this piece here and this metal here. Right now, I'm just drilling these out. Let's get started.
Jack continues to do even more drilling. Again, being careful not to damage any of the parts that we still need. We're at the next stage. Well, Jack's been absolutely smashing it out, but I understand now what's going on. So, right, we've got everything damaged off, apart from this rear parcel shelf, which is a little mangled, and Jack was thinking about straightening this out to try and get it perfect. But a better alternative, as what we've said, is we have this from BMW, which is the whole rear shelf there. But if we wanted to replace this whole rear shelf, we're going to start attacking all of this side, and that's going to be, we ain't going to be done till 2026. So we can get the bits off which are damaged and use parts of this to create a good one. So we're essentially making a nice piece instead of smashing all that end out. You'll see when we do it. I'm trying to explain it. It's not really working very well. Another question you might be asking is, after we've got off all of these damaged parts, how much is it going to cost us to replace them all? And what are we going to replace them all with? We have this. Now, the funny story about this is that this actually come with the BMW. I got this free with the car. So the person who I bought the car off was going to attempt to repair it. Bearing in mind, obviously, they didn't go for insurance, but couldn't find anyone that was mad enough to take on the repair, or was it even financially viable. So we got this free with the car, which was an absolute bonus. The only issue with this is we need more than this part of the quarter. There's dents here, but on the good side, all this inner structure, everything inside here, the shelf and everything like that is all usable to an extent. Even though having this second-hand part has saved me a lot of money, what it didn't save us is time. You've already seen how long it takes to strip apart the panels of the outer structure to the inner structure, and that's exactly what we've got to do on this second-hand panel as well. My dad has been working away stripping apart the panels of this second-hand panel, whilst I've been working stripping apart the M3. And in both equal timing, we seem to have it finished off. Yeah! Now we have a good inner structure that we can put on the BMW M3. It's go time. And now we are, I say, at the point now where we can start building things back up. And that right, Jack?
I hope so, because we've done a lot of work.
Right, should we just try and get...
Yeah.
We'll try and get this onto there, but it's got to slot in like holes here and all sorts. So there's a technique of doing it. Okay.
Hopefully.
Shall we get it on? Are we
Alrighty.
all going as a team? This is the time the second-hand inner structure meets the BMW M3. A lot of people think you might need a jig for this type of work, but as long as everything is in measurement, which it was, there's no reason to use a jig for this type of work. Step 67. Now, all of this is on, and you can see the holes that we've drilled out, and I would say spot weld, but it's not called spot welding, it's called
Plug weld.
plug welding. So we're going to put, Jack's already started trying the welder out here, and we're going to just do every single plug weld now, which is a lot. Like, there's literally holes everywhere. It looks like a stack of cheese at the minute. Let's get welding. I'm the apprentice.
The super professional here. So I am impressed. A little bit of welding and that looks amazing. So have at it. Nice, that sounded good. Oh, you missed a little bit.
Oh, I missed a little bit.
That's not bad. Like, this is literally your second weld on the car.
Yeah,
so.
I'm happy with that. So like, can I just plug that bit in?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
There you go. Not bad.
Not bad. But if we're gonna get done, and I want it done by tomorrow and not next week, I think you better take over.
I'll take that.
So what we essentially have done here is replace all the broken and bent parts with second-hand straight parts. And it'd be pretty obvious if anything was out of tolerance, because it just wouldn't line up.
Now we have to take this little piece here. We decided not to put this whole piece in. We really didn't need to, but we're gonna cut this right on this line here that I've made.
Wow. Right there. Wow. This is gonna be a huge time saver and save us replacing that whole back panel.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that should fit. Oh my God, that is sensationally. Wow. You've just got to weld that together. Jack's made sure that the panels are spot on. He's going to clamp it down and weld it together. Weld time. We're going to let Jack do the welding between the two panels because this is a pretty vital part. And I'm not so experienced in welding yet. Yeah, look. Joined up. Clean it up. Looking good. All these spot welds are in. That is pretty much most of the inner panel done. Well done, Jack.
OEM.
Boom. Original gangster. Now you can see all the spot welds or plug welds where we've put in the exact OEM spots they were before. So it'll be as strong, if not stronger, than standard. Now, Jack has been absolutely smashing it. Can we just say thanks to Jack and subscribe to Jack's channel? Because all day he's come over and he's just stayed in the unit and we've not let him out. He's slept in here and everything. And he's got this far, but I feel like I've learnt so much as well. So there's a point as well where Jackie's going to have to go and we're going to have to carry on this ourselves.
Isn't that like today?
Yeah, that's today. So we're trying to get as much done as possible. And now it's a huge moment. All of this is set in and it's all primered up and nicely sealed up to an extent. But now it's the point where we're putting on, as you like to call it, the side panel.
No, the side piece.
The side piece. Called what?
Sarah.
Sarah, the side piece, is coming out. Look at this. A subscriber sorted me out with Sarah, the side piece.
Sarah looks good.
So a subscriber messaged me saying he's been trying to sell this for ages on eBay. Not sold it. I don't know why. I mean, there must be a handful of people that really want this. Sarah, the side piece. This is how the panel would come if I ordered it from BMW. The whole side of a car. As you guys know, we don't need the whole side of the car. So Jack's now cutting off the parts which we do need, leaving it with a bit of overhang. Whoa!
Fit.
Oh my God! Look at that! We then got to take the side piece off, put some masking tape on it, which is going to help Jack cut it in a perfectly straight line on the top half and on the bottom half. Then we can put the side piece back on the car overlay it onto the panels which are already there, mark them up, and once Jack has made his mark in the top half and the bottom half, we can then take the side piece back off the car again, and it can make a perfect cut in both of them. This is going to ensure that we get a nice line-up between the side piece and the original car.
Is that interesting?
Now when we put the side piece back onto the car, you can see it lines up perfectly. Well done, Jack. We couldn't have done this without you. Now before we do any welding, we're going to put the wheel on, lower it off the ramp, get the door, and put the door on as well. We need to make sure everything lines up. Look at that. Including the boot as well. And instead of having it on the ramp, we've lowered it to the floor to make sure none of the panels are flexing anywhere. The only thing which was slightly off was the boot lid. So we had to make a few more adjustments, but after those adjustments,
Look at that.
we got it pretty much spot on. With us being confident that it will fit, the side piece comes off. Go! My dad will start to drill some holes in it ready for the spot welds to go in, or the plug welds, and then drill some holes in the existing panels on the car as well, and then I'll get the panel bond out and start applying it to the inside of the arch on the side piece. Jack will make sure it's neatened up. Then I also apply panel bond to the inner arch on the car at the moment. This is how it's done from factory. We can then put back on the side piece for the final time, and the next step will be to weld it. Hello! It's the rear quarters on. We're going to get Jack to do this weld here, because I think that's going to be quite vital if we mess that up. And then after that, we can do all the spot welds, clean it all up, paint it, and start putting it back together. I think that's it.
It's almost fixed.
Yeah, it's almost there. It is literally almost there.
Yeah.
Sarah is doing bits. Let's do it.
Why are you putting that on? That's for Jack. You're not welding.
I'm watching. Jack got to work with joining Sarah the side piece to Michael the M3, I guess we can call him. And after he'd finished, they'd almost be joined as one. Now, guess what we've got to do?
More welding, I'd assume.
Yeah, more welding, yeah, you're correct. So now we've got to weld all these little holes which Jack's left us to do. Then we've got to clean it up, and then well, you'll see. But we're doing it now, so it could go terribly wrong, but we'll see how we go.
You don't seem confident.
I'm confident.
At least one of us are.
We were left to our own devices now. It was down to me and my dad to get this quarter panel on and get it on safely without messing anything up.
Took a living woman and turned her into stone. I guess I should be thankful.
And so far, I think it was looking pretty good. We cleaned up the welds that we put on, and we're almost ready for the next step.
Can't work your tongue. I guess I should be.
What's going on over here?
Just mixing paint because Matt says he don't know how to do it.
Do you know how to do it?
No.
Next step. All of this is exposed metal now. All of our beautiful welds. Inside the car, it doesn't need to be sealed because it's not exposed to the elements. We also need to etch prime it to stop it from rusting, which is what I'm going to do now, and then we're going to move to the next step. So all I'm going to do is just
Oh, look at the technique.
dust on a little... Oh.
Not that part.
I'll just etch prime everything, guys, and I'm going to check back with you once I've etch prime, because we don't want to get etch primer all over the camera, and because otherwise none of you will be able to see. This might be a good time to ask you guys who are not subscribed to the channel already, just to hit that subscribe button below. It is completely free. Right, etch primer's on. Now, paint, which my dad's mixed. I've never used this gun ever before, don't know how to paint. It don't have to be good though. Can I just show you like the other side? Look what BMW have done. They've just done a light spray. So that's what I'm going to go for, and we'll see how it turns out.
You look very professional with that.
Thank you. I think we smashed it. Right. BMW paint, look. Like that. Our paint.
I think actually it's better.
I think it's not actually that bad, to be fair. Bear in mind, you're never going to see that. It's all going to be covered up with all this insulation and that. But the fact that we've got a base coat on there is a 10 out of 10. Then, there should be no painting from now on apart from painting this, which we're not going to attempt that because like, that was just poor workmanship by us. Anytime a panel joins between one panel and another panel, it's got this seam sealer on. I failed dramatically at the BMW M5. But I've been taught how to do it now, and I think I'm going to give this a shot next. And this is all my masking up because that's what I didn't do last time. Mask it up, run the sealer down, try and make it look as OEM as possible. Bearing in mind, a robot did this. Every bit where the panel joins, we've got a seam seal. I guess let's do it. Let's go. So I'm hoping now the second time of me attempting to seam seal panels, I get it a little bit better this time. I'm using a brush on seam sealer and it looks quite messy at the moment, me just brushing it on, but I'm hoping when I pull the masking tape off, it should finish quite nicely. I'm trying my best to get the same sort of texture as the OEM seam sealer, but most importantly is just making sure that the panels are actually sealed. It's more important the sealer actually does its job rather than looking good. And do you know what? I don't think I've actually done too bad. Yes, it could be better and there's room for improvement, but it is a lot better than last time. And what I've done as well is mashed up the area and then give it a lick of paint underneath. And I am pretty happy with that. Bearing in mind, all of this is going to be covered up with arch liners, trims and sound deadening. You can see there has been work done, but I don't think it looks like bad work, in my opinion. And with all that done, I can start putting back all the wiring and the sound deadening in the interior and guide all the wiring loom back into place and start installing everything back to where it should go, like the amplifiers in the boot, which luckily survived the accident. Both amplifiers are now back in the rear quarter next to the boot, and after that, I can now put back in the battery. I slot it in place, put all the trims and accessories on it, lock it down, and we're on to the next step. Pyro fuse. Now, on this one, on a lot of cars, you can get away with cross-referencing pyro fuses, because when you go to a main dealer, they'll try and make you buy this whole line and everything like that, just for the sake of a pyro fuse, which you could probably get for like £15. The issue is with this pyro fuse on BMW, it's a sealed unit and it's in like that, and when the explosive goes off, it pops it away. The pyro, and then when it pops it away, it takes power away from the starter motor, so you can't start the car again after it's been in an accident, just in case there's oil everywhere. Now, unfortunately, I had to get one from BMW, £116 plus VAT, because look, it's a sealed unit. I can't actually buy them from anywhere else. It's a sealed unit. It's got all these cables with it. There's no way we can cross-reference it. It's £116 is quite expensive just for effectively a fuse, and we didn't even need these cables. But now, at least we'll be able to start the car. So I've got to fit this, and we should be able to start the car without jumping that pyro fuse. Let's do it. Part of the cabling disconnects from here, which I assume just goes to the body electronics. That goes down, connects to the battery, and then there's another cable which sort of connects at the bottom, which sends the power directly to the starter motor. With the pyro fuse bolted on, you can see the connection here going to those two wires which will go straight to the engine and connect to the starter motor. Now we should be able to start the car no problem. After that, I can start putting in the rear shock absorber. This is pretty easy to do. There's just some bolts holding it to the rear quarter and one bolt holding it to the rear arm, remembering to put back all the wiring where it came from. Now, onto the under trays. A bumper holder honour goes in that, does it? And, oh my god, it's sensational. In the bumper bracket as well goes this, and this is a sensor for what I believe is lane assist. I think it needs to be calibrated, but that slots in Yeah, I think that sits behind the bumper and it helps you for lane assistings. Now I've got the bumper holder on bolted to the side of the car. I can start to fit the second-hand rear bumper, which I got from a breaker's yard. But we're just test fitting it at this point to make sure it lines up. It's in. Ooh, look at that. Yeah, look, that's in there. I think that should come out a bit like that when we've got all the brackets on. And now we know it actually all lines up, we can take it off and start adding even more of the bumper trims which go underneath it. And with them on, we can add the rear crash bar, which again survived the accident, and then put in the brand new second-hand rear light I got. Going on for real this time. Yeah. Next up to see if it lines up, the boots or the trunk. If you're American. We did test this all out before welding, but we was just worried that after doing all the welding, there might have been some movement in the panels. Sensational work all the way down, around, doesn't touch, straight up here, bang on there. If you look, it's pretty flat. If you look, it's pretty flat. That is a 10 out of 10. Well, actually, no, let's say it's a 9 out of 10 because it would be a 10 out of 10 if this was red like that. I'm not putting the arch lining in because the body shop is still got to paint and, well, we'll have to take it off. So I'm going to put the wheel on, and then when I've got the wheel on, we should be able to roll it back and then put the interior in. Somehow, the standard wheel is still holding air after the smash. Yeah! First time with a quarter panel on. You'd never know.
What do you think?
It's great. Better than I thought.
First time! This is looking so good. I can't believe we actually have a quarter panel on and we've managed to repair all the inner structure as well. But we don't want to celebrate too early. Next up, we've got to clip the side skirt in place. Dialed. Then I'm going to be taking out these seats because I bought myself a little treat, which you'll see. One B&W M3. Are these the comfort seats? Yes. Yeah, wait a second.
Oh, I can't recline it, it's not plugged in.
With the seats out, I've got more room to put the roof lining in place. We can slide it back through the rear window, make sure all the electrical connectors are plugged in, and clip it to the top of the roof. Then we can push in all the OS handles, as we like to call them.
I hope I fit these OS handles properly.
After that, screensaver popped down with the brand new windscreen. Because we've got all the airbags in and we've done all the work to the dashboard now, it's about time we put in the new windscreen, which just fits perfectly. Now, I'm onto the rear parcel shelf. Sound deadening goes in first, then it's held down with these plastic screws. There's a plastic trim, and then the rear seat belts go on top of that. Once they're in, I can slide in the fabric with the speakers on. This is a bit mad, never seen this before. Instead of the damper actually holding up the boot, the hydraulic strut, it just dampens it to stop it from flying up. The spring is actually pulling open the boot and that's dampering it. So when I close the boot now, the spring's trying to open it, and when I let go, the damper slows it down so it opens nice and slow. That's, can't say I've seen that before. Remember in the last video, the seat belts were locked out. Only one seat belt was locked out, but I sent 2 off to the airbag team to have the tensioners reset because obviously we're locked. And they said the same thing, only one of them had detonated, which means that either there wasn't a passenger or the passenger wasn't wearing a seatbelt. But we should have 2 faultless one faultless seatbelt now. Yeah. Finally, we can put back in the seatbelts. And now they should be faultless. They just slide into this pillar here. There's an electrical connector on them. We bolt it all onto the chassis of the car and then put all the trims back over the top of it. And then I'm going to do exactly the same for the passenger side. Seatbelts are in. Now, I said in the last video, I would have really liked if I had the bucket seats, and I manifested it. I've managed not only to get the bucket seats, but also to get the full interior to match. And it was at a really good price because these seats are known for being expensive.
That's horrendous, bro. Jesus.
These fit me nice.
Yeah.
What, are you squashed? You don't look it.
No, I don't. Oh, that is mad, that seat.
Some people like them, some people dislike them. Nico's not a fan, but I think this is going to completely transform the interior of the car and make it look a little bit more sporty. And it's going to add a little contrast to it as well. Now the rear bench is in, it's time for the door cards.
BMW specialists.
There's only actually 2 bolts holding the door card to the door, and the rest are all clips. So it's easy enough done. And look at the difference that that's made. Yeah,
Leave it black.
Oh, should we make the executive decisions, keep it in black?
It's up to you. Let's compare condition.
Because look, it's got grey stitching.
Yeah, this is all dirty.
better.
Yeah. Why is that better?
I don't think it goes with the interior.
Oh yeah, I think
Because look, you've got the black
I think
centres.
you just don't want to
You've got the
send
black
it.
centres on the seats.
Come on, let's send it.
I would have kept
So
it
that's a
black.
vote of 3 saying leave it black, and Ethan thinks white, and you think.
Black.
What does
So that's
that
5 out of 6 people.
Yeah.
Don't
What
listen
does
to
Matt
me.
think?
I think
Black.
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 It's
yeah.
only Ethan that wants it white.
You gotta have it white. Look at it.
No,
Why?
because you put your arm on it. Right, we're deciding black. Let us know in the comments, black or the white armrest. Big moment. Apparently, word on the street though, with these seats is underneath, they have this module in here. I don't know why a seat needs a module, but it also has a module on here. According to people, this seat won't work unless we have the module coded. But I may be able to switch over the modules. But I want to test that theory first by just putting it in and see if it works. So I'm just going to put it in, plug it in, and see if we get any power to it at all, because it'd be quite interesting to find out. Okay. So it works. It was a lie. Good job we didn't do it, and it's a good job we tried first. Easy as that. And it actually works. Look, the black, that works, I think. The black armrest with that, I think that works. What a difference those carbon bucket seats have made. It's 100% transformed the look of it. Way better. And that is job done. These seats, I'm glad I've got them. This is going to be hard, isn't it?
Do you need a hand?
Maybe.
Very big moment.
Is it going to line up with the quarter? Gonna make a noise. This striker thing is not tight, so let's just leave that. It might not close properly yet. Oh, personally, the door's got to go in a bit more. Let's push that in, tighten that up, and we'll go again. Right, do it, Liam.
Ready?
Yeah. Oh, that is flush.
Is it good?
That's flush. Yes! Look at that! That looks pretty good. Now we need to test whether we've got any faults, because we shouldn't have. All airbags are in, everything is plugged in. We shouldn't have any faults, but who knows? Let's test it out. Okay, there's something that's slightly worrying. Restraint system fault, tyre pressure low, rear restraint system, that's the one that's worrying me. Driver restraint system and front passenger restraint system. There's a lot of faults, and the rear restraint system is to do with the rear seat belts, which I haven't changed. But there's a good way to find out whether there is an issue with them, the Carly, which is manufacturer level diagnostics. And this just goes in your OBD. So there's loads of things you can do with this. Diagnostic, use car check, customization, you can unlock a load of stuff. First thing I'm gonna do is check for issues, and it's gonna run a load of checks on every single part of the car. Let's see what we find. Oh my God. Very bad. So the good thing with this, now I can just click clear issues. We're gonna completely clear them. And the lower number we get now back, the better. I've not seen an airbag light on the dash anymore. That could potentially be good news. And then Carly had finished doing her checks, and we had a lot less faults now. This is good. There's nothing for the airbags we've fitted. All of this is to do with the parking sensors and those little modules that we fitted in the rear bumper. All of that needs to be calibrated, which we may have to take it to BMW for. And would you look at that? We're almost completely faultless. Just some tyre pressure to add and some washer fluid. Driver assistance, which is our lane changing and that type of stuff, so we can ignore that. We'll get that sorted. All the airbag lights are off. We know what we're doing. I think this is all good and safe to get to the body shop now. Let's take it for its first actual proper drive. We've done pretty good. Solid effort, I think. I literally cannot believe we've got the M3 this far in this amount of time. Although we still have got a lot more stuff to do to it, we've made a lot of progress already. What a car. Look at that. Oh, the seats have made a 10-10 difference, ain't they? Just seeing the seats through that. Absolutely solid. We've proved the insurance wrong. We've done it under budget as well. It's finally back. Here it is. Oh!
That looks sick.
That looks sick.
Look how evil that looks.
Oh!